Howdy-ho, Andrew here. Welcome to the Onion Buns and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Oilers. So, it's been an interesting week. Yeah, that's undercoating it. It's been an interesting week. We saw Evan Bouchard tie a record in the NHL. So he's one of 6 players to achieve this, and I mean seriously, mad props to him. People have heard me throw a lot of shade at Evan Bouchard for his very limited defensive abilities, and that's not going to change. I firmly believe when a player does something proper, you give them their props, and when they don't do it properly, you hold them accountable. And I know this is a very strange concept for much of Oiler fan base and definitely for the local media when it comes to Evan Bouchard. In their mind, it's all about giving him the props, but never holding him accountable. I disagree. So he had a career game the other night. And for that, Evan Bouchard deserves praise, and he deserves his props. He had 6 points, 3 goals, and 3 assists, 8 shots on net, and well, he was credited for 2 blocks, but let's be honest, when Evan Bouchard blocks a shot, that just means the puck happened to hit him. It's not because he's blocking shots. Evan Bouchard does not block shots. So I got to chuckle that they threw that into the equation. You know, as I keep saying, context matters. So, but he had a fantastic game. And we needed that fantastic game in that game. Otherwise, we were getting spanked by the Washington Capitals. Point blank. You know, we had 4 players show up in that game. Evan Bouchard, Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, and Zach Hyman. And they led us to a 6-5 win. But come on, guys. We should have more than 4 players in the game show up. Like, seriously. So, but yeah, back to Bouchard. He had a career game. It's funny, when I first heard that he had tied a record held by Bobby Orr from Bob Stauffer, I was under the impression that Bouchard was the second player. There was Bobby, and then there was Bouchard. Apparently, there's been 6 players that did this, counting Bouchard. But somehow Bob forgot to mention those other 4 players in his rundown, or mention that Bobby Orr did this feat 3 times. So I'm not throwing shade or taking away his accomplishment. 6 points is a hell of a game for a forward, much less a defenseman. You know, and I've said it before. No realistic person throws shade at Bouchard for his offensive ability. His offense is obvious. I've said it time and time again. He's a one-dimensional offensive defenseman. That's what he is. You know, I've argued till I'm blue in the face that he should never be on the penalty kill, and he shouldn't be. One of the main jobs on a penalty kill is to block shots. Evan Bouchard does not block. When somebody shoots, Evan Bouchard makes himself as tiny as possible to try not to get hit by the puck. And you've heard me say it before. I don't want Evan Bouchard getting hit by the puck. I don't want him blocking shots. You block shots, you stand a chance of getting injured, like Henrique. He blocked shot, took it to the hand. He's out until after the Olympic break. So I don't want Evan Bouchard blocking shots. But if you're not willing to block shots and put your body at risk, you shouldn't be doing the penalty kill ever. You know, this is one of the disagreements I have with Knobloch, is he plays favorites and he seems to play optics, because he'll put Bouchard out on the penalty kill, and then Bob Stauffer can come in and tag team and go, well, Evan Bouchard plays on the penalty kill. That means he's a good defensive player. No, Bob, it doesn't. It doesn't. A good defensive player goes out there, he blocks shots, he stops goals, he plays physical in front of his net. That is a good defensive defenseman. That's what you expect from Matthias Ekholm. You expect that from Darnell Nurse. To a lesser degree, you expect that from Emerson. And we're getting that from those 3, without a doubt. But that's not how Bouchard plays the game. Bouchard is a one-dimensional offensive defenseman. And the other night, that offense was on pure display. Absolute pure display. You know, 3 goals, and they were good goals. They weren't chintzy goals. And 3 assists. So, you know, again, mad props to Evan Bouchard for that game. If we got that I'm not saying the 6 points, but if we got that type of offensive game from them every single game, a lot more people would be willing to overlook the defensive liabilities. But we haven't been getting that offensive game from him this season. So, I don't want to keep going back to throw shade on him, but I find it very frustrating that the local media, they're one-dimensional. They will cheer the offense, but then they won't talk about the defensive liabilities. And that drives me absolutely insane. I think if you're going to reward the good, and he deserves to be rewarded for that game, like, make no mistake about it, he deserves to be rewarded for that game. He deserves to be celebrated for that game. But if you're going to reward the good, you need to hold the bad to account. And that's been my biggest frustration with the Edmonton Oilers and the local media this season, is bad is not held to account. And in many cases, good is punished. You've heard me talk about it. Noah Phillips, all we saw was good other than the injury. He got given away for nothing because Knobloch didn't like him. Jones was fantastic on the fourth line, so he's in Bakersfield. Clattenburg gave this team the much needed energy and physicality boost. Well, he got sent to Bakersfield, and now he's out for the rest of the season with a hand injury from fighting in Bakersfield when he should have been fighting in the NHL. Lazar, how many times has Lazar had great games on the fourth line only to end up in the press box for 5 games? We've seen this all season from Knobloch, where he keeps punishing good players for doing good things. But then Savoy disappears for 12 games, and we don't hear boo about it, and he doesn't miss a shift. Bouchard at the start of the season was absolutely brutal. He was beyond brutal. I think he missed 1 shift. He got benched for 1 shift, never saw the press box, never got held to account. So, this has been the story this season with Knobloch and the Edmonton Oilers, is there's no accountability for bad, and there's too much praise for good. There needs to be a balance, at least in my opinion, there does. And I think that's one of the reasons this next topic is coming up. All season long, we've heard, who is the best person for the third line center position? And I was just talking about this online. And of course, one of the people came on and said, well, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. And I'm like, I don't understand this. We got 2 lines that are working, Leon's and McDavid's. And then we have, you could say the fourth line with Lazar and Janmark are working, but they play such limited minutes, they really don't impact the game all that much. And then our third line's been an absolute disaster all season. So everybody wants to take Ryan Nugent-Hopkins because, and I firmly believe this is why, because Bob Stauffer keeps mentioning it, and they want to take Ryan Nugent-Hopkins off the top line and replace him with Mangiapane or Savoy. Well, Mangiapane and Savoy have absolutely stunk when on the first line with McDavid and Hyman. And it's hurt that line. One guy online today, he's like, well, McDavid and Hyman can play with whoever they put them with. No, they can't. We've seen it this season. When McDavid has Howard, Savoy, Mangiapane, Fredericks, trying to remember who the other one they put up there, it didn't work. Well, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins was injured. It did not work. And the line suffered for it. So it's not a matter of just putting anyone up with McDavid and Hyman. We have the perfect fit with Ryan Nugent-Hopkins with McDavid and Hyman. So those 3 should never be touched. Then on the second line, it's very clear it's Podkolzin, Leon, and you either want to have Kapanen or Rosevich. One of those 2. Because Mangiapane, again, has done nothing when he's on that wing. And it's hurt the line. So you got 7 players that are spoken for. So you get to your third line. Well, right now it's been Howard, Rosevich, and Savoy. Okay, Rosevich, he works his ass off, and you do see him force opportunities for himself, but he's basically one player out there, and he's not Connor McDavid, so he can't do it by himself. For 95% of the season, Howard and Savoy have been absolutely invisible when they're on the third line with Rosevich. So you can't keep them together. And the other problem is, as we get closer to playoff hockey, it gets more physical, it gets more grindy, it gets more intense. We already see Howard and Savoy disappearing in games where it's getting physical. Like they pull a Yamamoto and disappear. And that's the regular season. So we get to the playoffs, you can't have those two on the same line together. You just can't. So what do you do with the third line? Well, I mean, we got Henrique coming back, and Henrique has slowed his step. Honestly, I think Henrique is more of a fourth line player now. And that hurts me to say, because I remember Adam Henrique back when he was younger, and he was an amazing, amazing player, but time catches up with us all. So you got Adam Henrique, should be on the fourth line. You can't put Savoy and Howard together on the third line. You can have Rosovich or Kapanen there, but one or the other is going to be up with Leon, and the other one's going to slide to the third line. So we still have two openings. And one of those openings has to go to a physical impact player. It can't go to a small, undersized, non-physical player. It has to go to, well, a Clattenburg would have been perfect, or a Vander Kane style of player. That style of player. That's what we need to get. And then as for the center spot, I mean, I don't know what we have on the farm anymore. Like Noah Phillips, we are missing Noah Phillips. Let's just be very clear about it. We are desperately missing Noah Phillips. He was supposed to have been our third line center this year. Nobody knows why Knobloch didn't like him, but he gave Phillips the Jeff Skinner treatment, and then Bowman and Knobloch shipped him out for nothing to Carolina. So Carolina's win is our loss, and there's no other way to put it, you know. And if you disagree with that, you're fooling yourself. We lost out on potentially our third line center for the next, say, 8 years. That's who Noah Phillips should have been. He should have been a stalwart on the Edmonton Oilers for the next 8 years in the middle six. So maybe he moves up to the second line if an injury is there, but his real spot would have been third line center. We got nobody else to replace him in the system, so now we got to go trading. You know, this is why Rosovich, who is not a center, has been playing center. We have nobody for that spot. I don't know how this is going to work out. I really don't. You know, some people are, well, we need a fourth defenseman, and we need this and this and this. And I don't disagree. Like, we could definitely use a defensive stay-at-home physical defenseman to play with Nurse. We absolutely could. You know, and then you move Wallman and Emberson together on the third pairing, and you put Stastny as the number 7, and that makes perfect sense to me. Absolute perfect sense to me. But we are limited on cap space, and right now we need a third line physical winger, a third line center, and a second pairing stay-at-home defensive defenseman. We're trying to trade Mangiapane out. We can't trade Fredericks, even though that contract, I mean, the only thing I can think of is they might buy him out at some point, but that's going to hurt our cap for the long term too, because he's been an absolute nightmare on this team. He really has. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't see us picking up 3 players at the trade deadline. I see us picking up 1. So maybe when we trade Mangiapane, we can get a young player, a prospect that can step into that third line role as a center or as a physical, beefy guy. You know, maybe. Who knows? We'll have to see. But I can't imagine there's a whole lot of demand for Mangiapane because he's not been good this season with the Oilers. So, yeah, anyway, it's a conundrum, and I don't know how it's going to play out. We're just going to have to wait and see. So next up is the roster injury report. Kapanen is expected back probably by the time you see this video. He's back, from what I'm hearing. I'm hearing he might be back on Monday, January 26th. If he's not, then he should definitely be back on Thursday for Thursday's game, day after this video. But yeah, we'll have to see. You know, hopefully he's back. Hopefully he's healthy. They're saying it's an abdominal problem. So it sounds like he pulled an abdominal muscle or something, and just a short-term injury, but he'll be welcome back, you know. And Henrique, as I mentioned already, he's out until after the Olympics with a hand injury from blocking a puck. And Leon returned, so he's back in the lineup and made a huge impact in Saturday's game. As I mentioned earlier, the only players that showed up for Saturday's game really were Bouchard, McDavid, Draisaitl, and Hyman. They did everything. The rest of the team was passengers. Well, Nurse had some nice defensive plays, and Ekholm was much better than the Pittsburgh game, but that's not hard to do. But otherwise, it was, the team is not overdeveloped. Some nights they hit expectations. A lot of nights they're below expectations. Rarely do they over expectation. So, right now we're a two-line team. Is what it is. So, but that's the injury report and the roster moves. So, hopefully something's coming up. But I think coming up is another trade deadline or trade freeze for the Olympics, and then we come back for a few weeks. And then it's the actual trade deadline. So there should be news coming on what this team's going to look like and where. I think they got too many holes to fill. All right, so it's time for my favorite session of the week. Making fun of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Who wouldn't want to make fun of the Toronto Maple Leafs? Come on. All right, so we got this one right off the bat. It's a Canadian guy. I'm taking it he's from Toronto. And he's throwing a Toronto Maple Leafs jersey and foam number one hand and flag in the garbage. And he's got Oilers gear on. Why? Because just once in my life, I want to cheer for a Canadian team that actually has a shot at winning the cup. That's why. You can't blame them. Okay, speaking of the upcoming trade deadline, we got Austin Matthews and I don't even know who number 44 is. Somebody come in and tell me. They're singing karaoke. You got the band members. Sing it, fellas. And the pianist. You boys got that right. And they're singing, we got the better win or someone's getting their ass traded blues. All right. And to finish off this week, we got the milk cartons. So the first milk carton, milk, missing Austin Matthews, grade A pasteurized. And the second milk carton, Carnation milk. I guess this one is from last year or from 2 years ago because it was Kyle Dubas, but it's Carnation milk. Missing Toronto Maple Leafs last cup, 1967. We have not seen past the first round since 2004. If found, please contact Kyle Dubas, 555-555-5555. And that is making fun of the Toronto Maple Leafs. It never gets old, people. It never gets old. I can do this all year, and I'm going to. All right, so first game for this past week, Oilers versus the New Jersey Devils, January 20, 2026, game 51. So big lineup changes with Leon unavailable and Kapanen and Henrique injured. And the Oilers lose 2-1. Shots on goal were 17-21 for the Oilers. Well, not winning 3 consecutive games continues, but when you only have 9 shots on goal after 2 periods, is anyone truly surprised? Even our 1 goal was pure luck or amazing bumper pool by Wallman. Wallman shot the puck, it hit Savoy, it wasn't redirected, it wasn't tipped, it hit him, he had no control over it, and we got the lucky bounce into the net. 3 stars were Hyman, McDavid, and Podkolzin for their third period play because we stunk in the first 2 periods. The Slugs, the first 2 periods, and Knobloch. So Hyman, McDavid, Podkolzin were all world in the third period. How they didn't score is unthinkable. As for the Slugs, the team stunk in the first 2 periods. Absolutely stunk. And Knobloch played favorites again. Yes, Savoy credited with a goal, but that goal was about Wallman, not Savoy. Savoy once again proved he has zero chemistry with McDavid, and that line had nothing going for it with Savoy on it. But Knobloch stuck with it regardless. Oilers are now 25-18-8, and that was that game. Next game was Oilers versus the Pittsburgh Penguins, game 52, January 22, 2026. So, a couple few things to speak on regarding this matchup. One, it will not be Jari versus Skinner. Penguins have decided not to play Stu Skinner this game after he put on an excellent show versus Calgary the night before. Stauffer has been saying all week it would be Ingram for the Oilers, but that was false. Jari will in fact be starting for the Oilers. And the Penguins win 6-2. Shots on goal were 22-31 for the Oilers. Well, what's to say? Play heavy and you negate Oilers' skill. It's as simple as that. This team is not designed for playoff hockey. You have heard me say this before. This year we are the Toronto Maple Leafs of the Western Conference. Good enough to make the playoffs, but unless we build an entire new third line, we're not getting past the first round this year. 3 stars. There were no stars in this game. None. That's the first time this season I've done that, I think. Slugs, the entire team's effort, Knobloch and Bowman team design. You've heard me talk about it. Like, we had no effort for all 3 periods. The Penguins absolutely dictated the play for all 3 periods, and they won 6-2. And Knobloch and Bowman, they designed a small, soft team. And the kryptonite to a small, soft team is play them heavy. And that's exactly what Crosby and the Penguins did. They weren't dirty. They didn't take a lot of penalties. They played heavy. And the Savoys, the Howards, the Majapanis, the Stastnys, they couldn't compete. Oilers are now 25-19-8. All right. Next game was Oilers versus Capitals, game 53, January 24th, 2026. So the lines appear the same as they ended last game. I'm not sure that's a good thing. Majapani is up with Leon and Podkolzin. Ingram gets the start in net. This game goes to overtime. The shots on net at the end of the third period were 38-26 for the Oilers, but the score was 5-5. And if it was not for the amazing offensive display Evan Bouchard put on in this game would not have gone to overtime. But I'll get to that. In OT, Oilers goal, 4:13, McDavid from Bouchard. Oilers win 6-5 in OT. Shots on net were 39-26 for the Oilers. So first off, I throw a lot of shade at Bouchard for his limited defensive play. But I also believe when someone steps up, you reward them. Bouchard had a career game with 3 goals and 3 assists. Amazing offensive display. So may as well do the 3 stars. Number 1, Evan Bouchard. 3 goals, 3 assists on his 400th career NHL game. McDavid, 2 goals and 3 assists. And Leon, 3 assists. The Slugs, both Oiler goalies sub 900, but Ingram especially looked shaky tonight. So regarding the game, what the hell was Washington thinking giving Oilers that many power plays? I would have bet real money there was no way they would have done that. Made for interesting period 2 and 3 and OT, but absolutely not the game I was expecting. But I said at the start, I've never seen McDavid have 3 bad games in a row, and he didn't. He had 2, and then he came back with this display. I thought Leon would be better after 2 full sleeps at home, and he was. And I was hoping Bouchard and Ekholm would not repeat their Pittsburgh performance, and it was a complete 180. Evan Bouchard had a career night. Yes, 5 goals against and took some last-minute heroics, but take the win. Oilers are now 26-19-8. All right, and for the final game this week, it is Oilers versus Ducks, game 54, January 26, 2026. The big news is Ike Howard has been sent to Bakersfield, and a center named Josh Szymanski is brought up. He's a 23-year-old German center, 6'2", 195 pounds. He has 28 points, 7 goals, 21 assists in 39 games in Bakersfield. And Google says he has size, skill, speed, and doesn't shy away from physical side of the game. So on paper, he's exactly what I've been asking. Kapanen draws back in, and in the press box will be Regula and Majapani. All right, and the Oilers win 7-4. The shots on goal at the end of the game were 40-32 for the Ducks. So the Ducks came on strong in the third period, tallying 16 shots on goal, but the Oilers weathered the onslaught and solidified victory with 2 empty net goals. Big game for Ekholm and Nurse tonight. So the 3 stars. Ekholm, 3 goals, hat trick, his first career hat trick. Leon, 4 assists. Nurse, 1 goal, but he could have had 3. The Slugs, my only real complaint is, once again, a slow start. So, regarding the Stars, Ekholm had a heck of a game tonight to earn his first career hat trick, and in doing so set an NHL record as the first team to have back-to-back hat tricks by a team's defenseman. Leon had a quiet 4-point night, if anything truly possible with 4-point night, but you really didn't hear his name a lot. And I'm sure others will complain, but Nurse had a heck of a game. Scored, could have had 3 or 4 if he had a little bit of puck luck, was physical, and sacrificed his body defensively. What more can you ask from him? As for the Slugs, sooner or later these constant slow starts and allowing opponents to set the pace will start to cost us. It hasn't yet, but eventually it's going to as we get closer to the playoffs. So they really need to nip this in the bud and start showing up at puck drop, not 10, 12 minutes into the first period. Oilers are now 27, 19, and 8. And that's my video for this week. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like, a subscribe, and a share. I'm trying to grow my channel, and a like, a subscribe, and a share does me wonders, and I do appreciate it. It takes 1 second to subscribe, costs you absolutely nothing, helps me immensely. Just hit the subscribe button on the bottom of the screen. If you're watching this on Rumble, please follow my channel. Always feel free to leave a comment. I encourage everybody to leave a comment. Not only does it get us interacting, but it really does help me with the YouTube algorithm and getting more eyes on my videos. And as always, pew 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 and shit. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye.